Hey everyone, and welcome to another Spodcast. This is a bit later than we originally planned. We did have a preview podcast planned, but I dumped my friends for Amy Garcia, which I still think was the right call, whether they agree or not. But when Amy Garcia calls, you've just got to answer. So this is going to be, rather than a preview, it's going to be a review of Lucifer Season 5B. And I've been waiting a month to talk about these episodes, so I want to get straight in. And I'm joined once again by John and Shantz. Hey guys, how's it going?
Hello.
Howdy, howdy, howdy!
So I'm going to get straight into it. I'm sure the people listening or watching will also want to know some of our opinions. So I'm going to go straight in with the idea of God. We ended Season 5A with his appearance and his cliffhanger. What I want to know is, what are your opinions on Dennis Haysbert as God? And what are your opinions on the actual character and his interactions? John, I'm going to jump straight in for you for that one.
Yes, I always said that God could only be played by Morgan Freeman. I stand corrected now. I think it's open now for a new slot. I prefer this version of God. It was very taken in that he had very much the song says, God is one of us, a slob like one of us, just a stranger on a bus. And I was hoping they would have that song put in, but they didn't. It's fine.
How long have you rehearsed those lyrics just for this podcast?
2 hours, 3 hours? That's fair to say, isn't it? But no, I enjoyed the interaction. I enjoyed the presence he brought on set. I think he was the right person for the role. I think he was such a stature of a character to have on screen that I think it played off perfectly with the other cast as well.
Chance?
Yeah, I mean, it was really great. I mean, it was very, you know, for anybody in the theological circles, we all have our own view of what God would have to be. And one of the things that I've always thought of is the thought that he made us in his image. So all of those emotions and feelings and experiences that we go through them because that's what God would go through, because he made us in that same image. So it was really interesting to see how those human aspects of our soul that would have been given to us at the time of creation, how it played out being Godhead. Because, we have this view of an omniscient, being that just sits on the throne, looks at us with his little pinky and wah, ha, 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 look at what I'm making my humans doing. And for him to come
for $1
down...
billion as well, is that what they're going for?
A little bit, yeah. But we all... and every culture has a completely different view of how God's going to be, right? So you have the Greeks who thought that the gods were basically spiteful creatures who could, not really care about us a whole lot, to the Christian God who says, I'm all love, but I'm all knowing, and I'm sitting, high on my throne. And to have that brought down to earth, it was very, even though you said last time, Jesus didn't make an appearance, it was almost like God did in his stead, because he had the same attributes of learning, and learning how we operate here on earth and how that affects him. And so it was really interesting to see a progression of different attributes. If I took my Godhead off and I took all of that I have and I came down to earth and became a human, what would I need to learn? What would I need to focus on? What would my attributes be? What would I realize for the first time I couldn't do, and how would I approach it? And it was really interesting to see the dynamics play out with all of the relationships he had with his creation, and how that went forward. And I definitely like that. Although I was expecting every once and again to hear, this insurance voice come out halfway through.
See, one of the things I absolutely loved about the performance was how understated he was at times, and it was kind of childlike. As in, he didn't have these big, huge speeches that you'd expect from God, or this whole mightier than thou. It was just very simple phrases to people, and what he said then brought out the speeches from others. Like when he's talking to Maze about a soul, he just says something very quickly, and then she kind of talks about it and thinks about it. He talks to Ella, and Ella all of a sudden feels enlightened. Even though he's only said 1 or 2 sentences, he had this impact on them just very cleverly in what he was saying. And even though people haven't seen the preview, episode that we recorded, I did one of you asked about whether they find out their desires or their favourite things, when actually God was making their favourite things without them knowing, like Maze's drink and things like that. I just thought it was a
Coffee.
yeah, it's just a very clever performance, and I thought the writers have done a very good job, because we've went 5 seasons, well, 5.5, 4.5 seasons, thinking God's this big, strong, scary character that put Lucifer in his place, and Lucifer was, let's be fair, Lucifer was kind of scared of him as well, and he was far from that, but you could still see he was still not knowledgeable on everything when it came to looking after his own kids and his own wife. Now, John, what were some of your favourite performances of Dennis as God throughout the season? Was there anything that kind of stood out for you?
There was some very explosive moments that I enjoyed. I am going to add that pun, I don't care. I do like, my favourite has to be the interaction and the emotional levels with Lucifer, because Tom Ellis and Dennis on set had just pulled that off incredibly. Like, to feel the emotion in that room, to see the devil pretty much cry, and God just have this emotional side of him was, it was... again, like, shapes, we're shaped in his image, so to see him having the same sort of emotions that we would share was something quite touching. It was, you don't expect him to be like that, and I think that was the greatest thing. I was expecting him to be, like, very adamant that he made the right decision with Lucifer, but he was quite willing to open up to his mistakes, and he resolved Lucifer's character, so I very much liked it when them two were on screen together.
What about you, Shams? Was there anything that you found that was a standout moment for God? For example, could it be just he's the reason why the musical episode was happening, because he was self-actualizing the fact that his powers were out of control, when yet again it was that Dick Michael causing all the problems?
I mean, I definitely like those musical interludes because, I am a huge Glee fan, so that kind of filled that little Glee void for me. I like that. But I think the ones that resonated me the most, so getting kind of personal, I actually think I cried through every single episode of this last half of B, and probably not because they're extremely cry-worthy, but it's just I'm personally in a time of my life where I've just gone through a lot. Actually, the other day I've recently had a death, and so it was really Garcia sitting there and praying and like, God, like, I feel like you're not up there. And the waterworks started again, and I was just like, oh my goodness, like that. Can you imagine feeling that way? Like, he'd come in and he'd given her, the best advice ever, and I felt like it really strengthened her faith at that moment, even though she didn't know she was talking to God. And then to talk to him later and have, like, the wherewithal to realize that he's not there, like, that bond had to have been so strong. And you see that she struggles with her faith through all of the seasons, and now to finally get to a point when he's actually not even there, and she still has the faith to go, like, I need you, I need a direction, and she gets a sign. Now, that may mean on some ethereal level that no matter what universe God's in, he's always listening. That would be a really cool take on it, because if God made one universe and he can make another universe, what's to say he can't, come through all the universes and be able to hear us? It'd be really interesting. I definitely liked that aspect. And speaking of God, spoiler to the very end, is one thing that I really thought was interesting is that at the end, when everybody's bowing and you finally find out who God is taking over based on the battle that happened, Chloe is the only person that doesn't bend the knee. And it's interesting because it makes her seem like, even though she's a human, but she's his partner and is equal in that aspect. And it was really interesting to see that aspect of it. That really resonated with me. So
Or maybe she's just really disrespectful, or she's still sore from being stabbed. Just to be the pain in that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, that could be it, but I think these writers are smarter than something so arbitrary. I mean, these writers are so clever. So clever, in fact, that, like, when you have the family dinner and he's bringing bread to the table, he's like, oh, freshly risen, just like you like. Like, little tiny clips like that made me giggle. Literally giggle. Just, like, funny little one-liners. These writers that have been doing these episodes are insatiably clever. Like, I'm always looking for that one line and then just go whoop and then they just get it so right. So this is and that this show is one of those things where there's not a lot of mistakes made, and when you think you have a mistake made, you think, oh, I got them, then it turns out they're able to pull it through, and it's just like, these guys are so smart. They definitely dot their I's and cross their T's, and it's really, really interesting to see it all put together.
Now, talking about characters, and actually I haven't pointed this out yet, but we all decided we were going to dress as different characters, even though technically me and John are the same. So Shantz has went for a Linda look. John has went for a casual Lucifer in the robe drinking a whiskey look. Is it actually whiskey in your glass?
It is an apple juice.
It's an apple juice. There we go.
No, it is not apple juice.
It's apple juice.
Oh yes, it is. Yeah,
it's
sorry.
Apple juice. Yeah, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And I've went for the casual Lucifer waistcoat blue shirt combo. I've even slicked my hair to the side a little bit, which annoys me. I hate it. But I wasn't allowed to lose the beard. I wanted to shave the beard, but I was told very strictly by my daughter it is not happening. Which then brings.
I didn't shave either. If it makes it work, I didn't. Yeah.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
You're hiding the beard really well, because I remember that scene with Linda with the beard.
Yep.
Yeah. Must be a deleted scene. But talking about characters, we had a lot of characters return, some in cameo kind of situations, especially in the finale. We had Chloe's dad come back. We had Set Out Bitch. Can't remember his actual name, but everyone just calls him Set Out Bitch. And we had Azriel come back. We had Remy come back. And
Caleb.
Oh, sorry?
We had Caleb come back.
Caleb mentioned.
No, he came back.
Did Caleb come back?
Yeah, I'm sure he did. He was the TJ kid, wasn't he? Or was he?
No,
it was TJ, wasn't it? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
No, his grave was there. So his grave was there for definite. But we also had the goddess herself come back as well. What did you think of these kind of background characters coming back, but they came back in such an interesting way as well, like Remy taking the side of Lucifer, Azriel hitting that gut punch, or should I say gut stab. What were your thoughts? John, we'll go for you, seeing Chance has just talked.
I think for me, the one that hasn't been mentioned that kind of came back was Eve. I kind of like Eve. She's really, really bonny. She's really excitable.
I just kind of class her as a main cast member now.
Well, yeah and no, I guess. I guess that's one. But yeah, I kind of like that. And I did like Charlotte Richards because I loved her character. Both celestial Charlotte Richards and non-celestial Charlotte Richards. I really liked the character. Season 2 was one of my favourite seasons. Season 3 was alright, don't get me wrong. It was really good. But Season 2 was really... And just to have her back and husband and just like that disdain in her voice again, like she did when that guy, thought he was God, the one with the belt buckle. It was sort of the same meeting again, but just slightly different. I don't know. It was just something about it. I love Charlotte Richards, the actress. I think she's brilliant. She brings a certain presence as well in the room, and it was such an emotional scene. I did like Remy. I do like Remy. I'm sad about Remy because she was badass. But yeah, that's sadly that they were sort of Charlotte Richards was my main one.
What about you, Shams? Was there any kind of returning characters that really stood out for you?
Well, it's kind of funny because I haven't had the same reaction to Eve that John has. I didn't really like Eve in this series. Like, I understood why she was there, but for me, she was kind of a disappointment. I just felt like I wanted to see a stronger Eve. Because, you know what? The problem is that I come from a theological background, right? So for me, like, the Eve that I had always envisioned is like a smart-ass, wisecracking lady who has it all together, and she had her downfall, but she was smarter than Adam in the garden. She's the one who, instigated the entire episode, and then, went on to be the mother of all earth. So I just saw her like biblically as a completely different person, and then to be introduced to Lucifer in such a way where I found her unfortunately, to be weaker than I anticipated, like on an emotional level in a lot of ways. Kind of wishy-washy, but she's not, but I guess because I had my own vision of her. But I do enjoy her as far as being able to, you know, especially in this episode, she was very, very wise, wiser than I'd given credit for her in previous seasons. And one of the biggest things I thought was when, you know, Mazuki comes to the hospital and she tries to give her mother's ring, and Eve's just like, very, very intelligently, like, no, like, our mortality is exactly why things are special to us, because if you don't have an end, you don't have, you know, you really just don't have that appreciation for not having. You know, you live in a castle, you have no appreciation for the things you don't have because you always have money and always have these things. Like, it was just a really, really succinct way of stating, like, why humanity is important, because we need to understand that and appreciate what we have, because we're not always going to have it in small and in large things. And that scene to me was like, it really resonated with me. And then her coming back, and it's funny because you say this one line like, I don't care if you die, and you say that to a regular human and they're like, excuse me? But then it was just like she just took that in for exactly what it meant, and it meant so much. And it was a beautiful moment. And those moments of when you take your vulnerability and you own it and you realize how special it really is and how much it means to the rest of your life and the rest of like how you cognitively define humanity, it was really touching. So I really liked having her back in that atmosphere, because I was not looking forward to it earlier, but after seeing what was done with the character and how it was brought together, it changed my mind on how that character developed and how those two interacted.
See, I love the fact that Azrael came back, but was very just, "Hi, I'm there."
Yeah.
And by the way, like I think she only said maybe 4 words.
Sorry, Lucifer.
Yeah, Lucifer, I'm sorry. And just having that impact for those 30 seconds where you just go, oh. Now, the problem is, and this people might not be aware of this, but when you get sent screeners, you are sent a little information sheet. And on this information sheet, it says, do not reveal these things. So before you even watch the episodes, you have to reveal this information sheet. And this information sheet said straight away, do not reveal Dan dies. So straight away, even before watching it, and then it says, do not reveal that Chloe dies. Do not reveal that Lucifer dies. Do not reveal that Chloe comes back. Do not reveal that Lucifer comes back as God. And literally before you watch the episodes, I was like, oh, well, is there any point watching them now? But it was great because it was more about the story, but in seeing how these characters reacted and changed just over these 8 episodes in their interactions with God, I thought was absolutely brilliant. I thought Gabriel, the angel of gossip, was an absolutely great addition, even if she kind of was on the wrong side. I actually really liked her. I thought she was a really fun addition, and I'd like to see her come back. I thought it was very interesting, and it might just be a little throwaway thing they've put in, but Mr. Set Out Bitch actually getting out of hell and being the first person in millennia to escape because Lucifer helped him, that might be interesting in the fact that we know Dan's dead, he's in hell. What if it's actually Chloe that is sent to hell to help him face his guilt? I think that would be a very interesting episode. But moving on from the characters, obviously there were a lot of twists. Obviously Azrael about to say that Chloe's going to die, Chloe dying, Lucifer dying, Set Out Bitch leaving hell, Dan dying. Were there any moments that you thought were just stand up above beyond twists?
I have 3 that stood out for me.
You can only say 1.
Oh,
No, I'm just
1.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
For me, it either involves Lucifer or Maze, or both of them at the same time. So the first one that stood out for me was the conversation between Lucifer and Maze about how she wants to be the Queen of Hell. and you see for the first time a genuine caring and respect towards her from Lucifer. Like, we see the generally, oh, I need your mace sort of thing, blah, blah, blah. This was a genuine affection and an apology as well. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't want to keep the promise either. And she was like, no, I understand. And it was just like, you've never seen that interaction between them before. The maturity of both characters and the evolution of it. Just the emotional. Honestly, I was like, wow, this is incredible. So that was my first one. My second one was Dan's death, how it affected Lucifer. And when Trixie comes in and looks at Lucifer, begging him to tell him that, you don't lie, sort of thing. And he just the emotion in his eyes, and then the retribution, of course, with him and Maze. That was cool. And then the last one was the one where Maze has a breakdown moment where she's holding the NSYNC t-shirt, and it was just like the sudden realization that, like, being human and having a soul isn't necessarily a bad thing. It makes you appreciate the people in your life rather than being cut off completely and torturing people. And I think, there is so many other awesome scenes and stuff, but I think those were the scenes that stood out to me because these are characters in season 1, 2, 3, and some way 4 wasn't emotional. They were sort of, they were out for themselves. But Lucifer and Maze were the biggest jump in evolution in this side of the section of the season. I loved how Lucifer's interaction with just anyone towards the end was just so mature. Whereas he wasn't less about himself, and his honest intentions were not correct in some ways. He thought he was being honest and doing the right thing, and it did come out selfish. But in fact, when he recognized and thought, oh, well, I am selfish, it actually turned out to be the complete opposite. And obviously the angel of righteousness realizes this and just stands on Lucifer's side. And I was like, wow, yeah, that's the depth of it. That's it. I think that they're my favorite members. I don't want to ramble on too much. I could talk about loads. I love them.
So one of my favorite scenes was when you have Charlie and Linda and Amenadiel, and Amenadiel is taking down all the bubble wrap, and he's just like, oh, my kid's human. And when we found out from Linda that she realized that her kid is going to be human, her relief of being like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. And it's kind of funny because most adults in our regular human world, when they find out the kids aren't special, they get really prickly. Like, as humans and as parents, like, I'm a parent, I've got, my own daughters, and you always want your kid to be special, you know what I mean? But the actual, like, you just see the abundance of her unconditional love for this child, where it's just like, I don't care what I thought about you, I'm gonna make sure. But then you see the other aspect of her when the kid isn't walking properly. I'm gonna make a chart. You know what I mean? So you see these two congruent things. She loves her child so much. She wants him to be, the best of the best. But she also has this acceptance. And then her argument with Amenadiel, where she's just like, you think you're better than humans, right? And it was just an understanding of how the rest of, the celestial beings actually see humans. We are God's creation. God created us for a purpose. And if you look, I'm going to bring it back a little bit. If you look in the Bible, the angels did not understand why God created humans. And so the show brings that jealousy and brings that lack of understanding into the writing and into the show. Is really, really interesting to see, because you see all of these angels who were created prior to humans being created and not understanding the miracle that humanity is and all the amazing, wonderful things that we bring to the table for, the spiritual world and being part of the spiritual world. And you see how that fits in, and being how they just don't understand how we as God's children as well fit into that spiritual world in such a concise way, and that we really are all brothers and sisters with these celestial beings. And taking that moment between Linda and Amenadiel and looking at this innocent, beautiful child and realizing that that child is allowed to grow up to be whatever they're going to be, it was a really, really deep moment that you may or may not have understood when you first seen it. But it's just that as a parent and as, someone who, has a faith and looking at it, I just saw beyond like the words in the script. I saw the intention behind it and how beautiful it was for unconditional love on all sides, and being able to see the world come together in that moment. And of course I cried, because I've been crying through this whole episode. And then for me, watching Lucifer go into heaven and just collapse and make a stand and say, like, this is how much I love you. This is how much I love you, and I'm going to sacrifice myself. And, the Bible is all about that. The Bible, from front to end, is all about a righteous person sacrificing for love of somebody else, and having that redemption, and having, that kind of resurrection, as it were. The whole Bible is filled with those, and it was really amazing to see how the writers brought that into, and having him come back, and having that. I think what really surprised me is I did not think he was going to kill Michael, because I didn't think that at that point, like, he didn't want everybody dying anyway. Like, I know that Lucifer is seen as this evil person who, like, does these sins on a whim, but I know that he really, really relishes life. When they're in the cemetery and Chloe says, like, it's not cowardice to save a life, and then Lucifer repeats that, and then you get to the point where he's over Michael. I think it surprised me that he cut off his wings, though. So when he cuts off his wings, it kind of took me back a little bit, because I thought there was going to be a little more bigger redemption there, and then Michael would be redeemed, and then he wouldn't be so fat, and he'd be like, oh, you know what, I lost, you know what, I need to come out of my shell. But maybe we'll see something like that in season 6. Maybe there'll be some more redemption there. But I was waiting for Gabriel. If you heard me in we didn't tape, like, it hasn't been shown, but in our last session, I was like, oh, I want to meet Gabriel. And she turns out to be like a teen gossip. It was funny, which is funny. I found that hilarious. I actually found that hilarious.
I had to stay very tight-lipped in our preview one. I might release the clip at some point when we played a game of yes, no, can't tell, won't tell. And a lot of the questions, I even did a throwaway kind of like, Chance asked me, does Dan die? And I went, well, of course, Netflix. Like, straight first question, and I went, Netflix aren't going to let me talk about that. It's not as if they're going to give us a sheet saying, oh, by the way, God makes Dan explode because he slept with Charlotte. But I said it in such a joking way that neither of them clicked on that actually I'd told them what actually happened in an episode. But then I started having a freak out in the podcast going, I think I've said too much. I need to cut things out of this podcast. And that's what I was kind of freaking out of, saying, I've said too much.
Yeah, but if you play it now, then it won't matter because it already happened. But Dan died twice.
Yeah.
I was doubly really right.
I wish they'd actually killed him by exploding him and then just kind of like, well, what happened there? How did that happen? It's just for giggles. But I think when we're talking about scenes that we enjoyed, for me, it kind of links into one of the best performances, which links into the Dan death, which is Trixie, Scarlett Estevez. Her performance in the hospital waiting room was just absolutely devastating.
Niagara Falls over here.
Yeah, and if a young actress of that age doing that type of performance, and I mean this in the most respectful way, she put all of the other cast to shame in that scene. She just blew them all away. And you know what? I think even the cast just would agree. She just nailed that one scene. And that one scene for me was probably... Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Season 5B. I think performances throughout were amazing. But that one performance from her just shows the calibre of where Season 5B of Lucifer has went up to. What about you guys? What do you think the performances have been like for Season 5? We could look at all of Season 5, but we'll just focus on Season 5B. But what do you think the performances have been like for Season 5B?
I agree. Trixie scene, that was like I say, I mentioned earlier on, that was my favourite scene because the level of interaction between her and Tom Ellis, Trixie and Lucifer just looking at each other and just pure emotion. Like you say, for her age, to convey that level of emotion in one scene, to pull everything, being the gravity pull of that particular scene is just incredible. A lot of actors out there that I've watched in series can't pull that level of emotion, and they've done acting for years and done big roles. So I think she definitely, just even though she wasn't in it very long, was definitely the MVP of the entire season just for that particular scene. If I was going to give the second one, I'd say Maze, because Maze's emotions. Is it Leslie Ann Brandit?
Yep.
Yeah, she knocked it out of the park as Maze, being emotional, this soul torturing her almost. And I just those two for me, bang on performances.
What about you, Shantz? Were there any performances that just stood out for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I mentioned the whole like Maze and Eve thing, and even though Eve wasn't in a whole lot, I think the progression of that emotional bond changed my mind of how I perceived Eve in this series. So even though it doesn't have the profound statement as the other scenes that you're mentioning, just because of the character arc changed for me in this one, I definitely appreciated that. The scene with Trixie gave me goosebumps. Like even you reverberating that scene gave me goosebumps because I can't even imagine what you need to tap into to feel that way, and to have, a little girl who must be so conflicted. Like, think on a child's perspective. She's got a mom and a dad who are on again, off again, and gone through all the scenes of, that family dynamic, and then she meets Lucifer, and then she meets Maze, and she has, these dynamics with these adults, and all these adult relationships are all so different. And then she goes through a phase where she's being, a little bit rebellious and not sure. Like, this kid has gone through, they have written her so many roller coaster emotions that are so authentic to an actual child her age, of everything that's going through. And what they did smart is they haven't made it over the top where it's unbelievable. Like, every single thing she goes through is so accurately depicted through what we would go through. And the actress has been just, a lot of her scenes are short. They're not prolonged throughout the series necessarily. I mean, the storytelling with the noir one, like everything that she puts herself to, you just feel it. So I definitely agree with her character arc as well over the last 5 seasons. I want to say like 5B is almost different on its plane for me, because I found 5A that I felt like it was very predictable. I could almost see exactly where it was going. Like, I knew Ella's boyfriend was going to be some sort of weirdo criminal something, like the moment I met him, and everything seemed really predictable. And then going through this one, I allowed myself to just be present in the moment, and I didn't feel the same predictability, in the sense, like, it was more like hopeful, like I want something to happen, I'm on the edge of my seat, I want this to happen, I want that to happen, I want this to happen. But it wasn't like the 5A where I sat back and went, I'm kind of disappointed that it's going exactly the direction I want. So I definitely appreciated there was a distinct difference in the mood and the way that the progression of each scene was. And, just looking at the different characters, God and Lucifer in therapy was phenomenal. So yeah, it was just really, I really enjoyed this. I think I was very emotional through this, so maybe I'm just off base because I had an emotional week and I literally cried through every single one of the 8 episodes at some point, some of them through the whole thing. So I don't know, and I'm not a crying person, but I'm telling you, I felt like, Niagara Falls the whole time. I was just so emotionally invested in these characters. It was kind of crazy for me, actually.
Yeah, and talking about performances as well, and I think I'd have many fans wanting to stab me through the heart if I don't talk about it, and that is Deca Star, Tom Ellis and Lauren German as Chloe and Lucifer in that final episode. Again, I think it was absolutely standout performances from them both, because we had five and a bit years worth of waiting for this moment where they both really truly show their feelings for each other. Lucifer obviously sacrificing himself and finally saying I love you to Chloe, and then when Chloe returns, just her willing to go against all of her own morals. It's a funny story of the whole, she's went through saying murder is wrong, and the devil kind of not showing his emotions, to the fact that he finally shows his emotions, and Chloe loving him so much, she's willing to go against her core being to get back at the person that made him die. And I think the performances from both of them were amazing. Do you think that the story arc of Deca Star has been very what's the word? It's not beneficial, but satisfying. And getting to that point now where, even though it didn't end the season, if you think, when they both came back, they weren't actually together. They were stood apart when Lucifer came back and took the sword off her. Do you think that has been a story that has been worth telling and spacing out over the 5 years, or do you think that it's paid off at the end?
Okay, I'm going to prepare for the hate mail of Decker Star now. I thought they had more chemistry in season 4, more chemistry in season 3, 2, and 1 than they did in 5B. 5A, they had a bit of it, but I don't know why. Like, the last episode, obviously, they did. They poured into that. But it just felt very forced on scene, some of the 5B ones. And that might be just the filming. That might be a load of things. But it didn't feel as sort of that build-up we'd been waiting, like them still gelling, but still, there's something there that you could feel, that the chemistry on there. It just felt they were together, and I was like, okay. Well,
Isn't that though the problem with a lot of TV shows, like say for example Castle? The whole build-up was them finally getting together, and then as soon as they got together, the show started going downhill. This happened in Cheers and things like that. I think you've got all of that build-up and flirting, and then when they're finally together, you're kind of like, oh, you've lost that dynamic of the whole flirting to and from, and together they've taken that little bit away. Do you not think it's more about that, and that's why it felt a bit flat for you, because they've taken away maybe an element that you actually really enjoyed?
I guess so, and I think obviously this was supposed to be the final season, so it would make sense. My only issue now is like, where do you go with it in season 6? Because for me, this could be, for me, I could have, this could be my ending. The way they ended the finale is still one of those, like, if they don't go with season 6, I'm satisfied, because you can kind of in your head work out what's going to happen next. Whereas for me, when a series goes on too long, you think,
Supernatural.
That's what I'm worried. Yeah, well, yeah.
Sorry. Nasty cough there.
It doesn't help that CJ tried so hard to bring in a season 6. You're ruining his mojo.
Don't get me wrong, I love Supernatural. I watched all 15 seasons, but it should have ended on season 5, and I still stand by that. But anyway, sorry, go on, John.
Yeah, I just think my only concern is that chemistry. It was brilliant for the finale, but it worked because of the dynamic that was going off and because of the sacrifice. But you can't do that in season 6, because then it'll remove what season 5 was. That's my only concern with the Decker Star. However, other than that, I think it has been satisfactory from 5A.
Mm-hmm. Shantz, your opinion on the Decker Star relationship? Was it worth the payoff at the end?
I think so. So the thing that's super interesting about the Decker Star relationship is that it kind of mirrors how real life relationships are in a way, because a lot of times in TV relationships, they're so dramatized with their ups and downs and everything like that, and like they get put in like some pretty ridiculous, non-realistic ways of being in couplehood, right? And I don't know how you can get more ridiculous than Lucifer, king of the underworld, dating a detective who was married to a douche, literally, and then had a kid, and like it's. And then she finds out she's like made by God for him, and so she feels a little bit like Eve. You grow up from a rib specifically to be produced for another human being. So there's been a lot of conflict for her, and I can actually understand on that way why the walls went up, and I think I understood why the chemistry lacked, and I thought it was actually really smart, because as you see the inner conflict for Chloe, you see the walls come up, and so now you have to decide, how are these walls going to come down? How are we going to take this arc and move it? The problem when you get your set. Do you remember when we were filming the last time, I said what I don't want is a wedding? I don't want some sickly, sweet, amazing, happy ending where everybody, the cherubs are playing their harps, and the doves are flying around, and then there's this really cool wedding, because it didn't fit the arc of who they are as a character, because they have a very complex relationship in a lot of ways, and you want to see them together, you want to have that satisfaction, but you definitely don't want all the loose ends to be tied up in a pretty bow. And I think that the way they ended season 5, we don't have that bow. We have a satisfaction, and we do, I think in season 6, we're going to see how is Chloe going to fit in this role? There are going to be some definite battles to go through. And yes, I agree that you could have ended the series just this way and it would be very satisfactory. But we do know that there's a 6th coming up, and we're just going to have to see how all these relationships play out. Is Chloe going to have to, somehow ascend to godhood? Because will she have to rule beside Lucifer? Will she have to be his partner in every single way? How does that work? Does hell become disevolved now that we know that creatures can come up? We haven't seen a purgatory in a sense. So we've seen hell, we've seen heaven, but we haven't really seen like a really full version of purgatory. So does that come into play where you now have that intermediary world where people can then transition and grow? Pardon?
We may have seen purgatory technically with Lucifer.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but we haven't seen it in a full sense, right? Like, it's been hinted at, I think.
Are we allowed to talk about the CW? there is technically a purgatory in CW Luciferverse where Oliver was in, which Lucifer does have access to.
Yeah, so, I mean, I definitely have seen that, but as far as this series specifically, so I don't know how the different universes are going to collide in some way. I mean, that'd be like saying, does the Flash come in? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, there's all these sort of things.
The way that kind of works out is that the CW has Lucifer in their universe, but Netflix doesn't have the CW in his universe. I know that sounds really weird, but
no, but I get it.
The CW universes don't exist in the Netflix series, but Lucifer exists to them.
Yeah,
that's not a bad thing, because the last thing you want is an Iris and Barry relationship between Chloe and Lucifer. No, you're not God, we are God.
Yeah.
I think it is one of those. I think we're right in saying we have got a very satisfactory ending if it was to end at season 5, and I think we all agree that we want Lucifer and Chloe to be together. Got no problems with that whatsoever. It's just we don't want it to then be over the top romance in season 6, because that is not being their dynamic from 1 to 5. And I know a lot of fans will want to see a lot more of their interactions and the romance and everything like that because they're big fans, but we have to remember that not everybody wants that as well. We want something true to the relationship of Chloe and Lucifer, because I don't think there's anyone out there that doesn't want them to get together, but it's staying true to the characters and obviously the executive producers. I've had conversations with about this before, and I think they've got a very set plan for season 6, which isn't going to be the big all action, big bad sort of season we've seen for season 5. It is going to be more about the characters. And I think, Shantz, I think you're probably not going to like season 6, because I think they are going to kind of wrap it up in a bow to give some happy endings for some people. I think from what they've hinted in interviews when I've spoke to them, we are going to get a lot of closure because they feel like they owe that to the characters. Now, the final thing I want to ask you before we finish off, talking about season 6, and not just about Chloe and Lucifer, but what would you actually like to see for season 6 coming up?
I would love to see how Charlie grows the family. I would love to see Linda and Amenadiel become a family and maybe that have a wedding. I would really like to see that. That would be really cool. I'd like to see how Mazikeen and Eve maybe make their own world, make their own universe, and create kind of like a new thing where, like, not being in hell, not being in heaven, kind of like how like God and his wife went off to another universe and build. That would be really cool. Like, I'm pie in the sky in here, but I think that would be really cool, as you know, because we have all these celestial beings and now we have Earth, and we haven't actually seen like how that's gonna relate to heaven and how it's gonna relate to hell moving forward. It would be interesting to see, because we kind of in this particular season had our kind of Armageddon, but in the sense that what we didn't do is, which was really smart, is the Armageddon didn't affect the Earth, right? It was only the celestial beings, whereas in, you know, other incarnations of what Armageddon is, it's like the whole Earth's going to be destroyed. I'm really glad they didn't bring that. They just kept it within the celestial being. So it'll be interesting how this all plays out for the rest of the world now, and how the rest of the world, and is the rest of the world going to be now introduced on a more in-face person of what God is, and or are they going to keep the world the way it is, where people don't actually see this on a daily basis? You know, is God going to come to earth? Is God going to, you know, be more present with the creatures that he created? That would be a very interesting story arc to see how the world then develops with these creatures, these celestial beings, actually being known on Earth. You know, just kind of like the way the metahumans are known in the Arrowverse or whatever. I think that would be a really cool story arc to see how do they bring Earth, heaven, and hell, and all these beings together, and do they all rule together, and do they finally make a choice to say these things exist, and how do we as humans then actually react to that universe being in our face and something that we can physically understand and see now? That would be a very interesting way.
So, go on, John, and your thoughts for season 6?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things I want to see is Dan resolved. I want his resolve. I want him to go to heaven. I want to see Lucifer almost cure those that he feels that don't deserve to be in hell, cure them of their guilt, saying that like hell is just another path to get to heaven. Like it's about curing guilt, about accepting guilt to those who are not necessarily truly evil. They've just had a guilt that's weighed them down to hell. That would be a great perception of how
what if that
heaven
was
and hell.
Linda's new job? She was hell therapist, where she goes through and helps them deal with the guilt. That'd actually be quite funny, wouldn't it? It's those that don't think deserve to be in hell as much go through Linda, and Linda helps them with their therapy, and then see what happens.
Purgatory
In
Linda?
theory, in theory, Lucifer has adopted some of the skills that Linda has sent, so there's nothing to say that he can't pass those skills on or do themselves. The other element I would like to see is Lucifer's rule, and not being so much like God ruling from above, but again ruling on the ground, but also encouraging the angels to live a life on Earth among humans and understand why Amenadiel and Lucifer and even Maze have become more human, and they've changed their perspective, because there is this angel arrogance that's still, even with Amenadiel to a degree, but this angel arrogance, even when they were like, oh well, all the humans are like going to kill each other anyway, they're horrible. When they're on about killing this human guy, when Lucifer obviously pretended to be Michael, it'd be nice to see them, this is the way forward, this is how they're going to shape the world, how they're going to help the world. You know, God has admitted that he's made mistakes by sitting idly by and just letting things happen, not showing love, compassion, and it has been reflected in some of these angels where they don't have so much love, they don't have compassion, they don't have a grounded sort of thought or mind towards humans. They just like, well, they're just animals, the little creatures, the ants under our boot. So I think Lucifer wants to bring that sort of almost that grounded feeling, and that would be interesting to see them interact. Even Michael getting a redemption, you know, as much as he was a bit of a a character, it'd be nice to see him just interacting on a more human level and just getting a more of a basis of this. And I think that would be a great way to tie it off, is just seeing angels sort of like walking amongst the crowd unnoticed as normal people, and that heaven and earth have combined in some way, and that these angels have an interaction with select characters, and then they ascend to heaven because they've been touched by these characters. I think that's essentially it is. It's not like heaven's this tight lock gate now anymore. It's about opening it and allowing good people that have had bad luck a second chance, because Lucifer had a second chance. That was the moral of the whole this 5B, was about second chances, about redemption. I think 6 should carry that on to tie it off.
Especially with the whole guilt thing as well, that people put themselves in hell for guilt, when actually some guilt isn't really their fault. Now, what I'd personally like to see, to kind of finish off the podcast, is I'd want to actually have Lucifer have God powers. I want to see it more as a role, so he isn't this omniscient, whatever, I can never say that word, like person that can see, that can see everything happening. I just want it to be a role where he's kind of in charge of the angels, and actually by the end, what I'd like them, as John said, is the angels start interacting with the humans, where they end up having like a parliament of angels, so there isn't one person in charge, it is actually angels that help decide and make the decisions together for the best of humanity, so Lucifer can then live out his time on Earth, because I can't see Chloe becoming a goddess.
No.
And I know a lot of people want that because I don't think she'll want to leave Trixie and
No, of course not,
watch
yeah.
Trixie grow old. I think the story of Lucifer is going to be him becoming more human to the point where he self-actualizes and becomes human so he can live out his days with Chloe and then be with her in heaven. That's how I kind of see things going. I could be totally
agree.
wrong, but that is the magic of the show. We will see, hopefully, before the end of the year or at the start of next year, because if you've seen the interview with myself, Ildy and Joe, the executive producers, they did tell me that the wait between Season 5B and the wait between Season 6 is going to be significantly shorter. So, fingers crossed it may be Christmas time. My theory is this, and you can quote me if I'm wrong. I think it's going to be a Christmas time because I remember some behind the scenes photos where there were a lot of what looked like Christmas presents and box presents in Lucifer's loft. If there are Christmas episodes in Lucifer, which they've never done, which I think would be perfect, Lucifer and Chloe's first Christmas together would be a great story. I think they might aim to release it around Christmas time because of those episodes. But that's my theory. That's how I'm going to end it on that note. But before we go, as always, I'm going to ask my guests where we can find them. So, Shantz, if we would like to find you to talk about this further, where can our listeners find you?
Well, you can certainly find me on Instagram. It's probably the easiest. It is at Real Chantel Nicole. And if you send me a hi, I'll send one back.
And John?
Send all your devilish messages to me at Multiverse Geek Man on Instagram.
He has been keeping that for the whole podcast, waiting
Yes.
to say that. And I was CJ the Geek, but obviously make sure you check back to SpoilerTV, hit that subscribe button if you listen on YouTube, or give us a follow on iTunes, on Spotify, on Google. We'd appreciate any reviews and anything like that as well. Anything you say and support us, we really do appreciate this. It's just been an absolutely amazing ride. For me personally, being involved in the Lucifer community since the cancellation has just been an absolute roller coaster, and no doubt it'll probably continue to be a roller coaster until Season 6 ends. But thank you all for listening. We really hope you've enjoyed all of the Lucifer coverage that we have done on Spoiler TV. And if you have, please let us know, so that way we know to continue and hopefully do more interviews and teasers in the future. I'm now rambling. I'm going to shut up, and I'll see yous next week. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button that's just below me there, or check out some of our latest videos that are just on the side there. Yeah, click that one. It's a really good video. You really enjoy it.